Hello everyone. For this week, we have two videos. In the first video, I will teach you how to conduct basic data analysis using ACL and caseware idea. In the second video, we have a guest speaker, Eric Hogan, who is the co-founder of XBRL. He will give you an introduction to XBRL. So you will find two videos and two sets of slides on e-college system. This is the agenda for this lecture. We will cover how to import files of different formats into ACL and IDEA. While some of these formats can be easily imported using other statistical packages, such as R, some cannot be easily handled by other software products. We will see this in a moment. I will also demonstrate how to calculate basic statistics in ACL and IDEA and use built-in functions such as summarization, classification, stratification, aging analysis, duplicate detection, and gap examination. Actually, some of these functions are very similar to what we have covered in Lecture 3, where we used R to write the comment. The purpose of this lecture is to show you how ACL and IDEA can do it, and do it differently. After all, not all auditors are good at programming, as indicated in the online discussion we had, and because these two software products are more widely used in organizations. So in the future, if you can understand the capability of these two products and conduct analytics efficiently, you will have a big advantage. In today's lecture, we are going to use two types of data: account payable data and account receivable data. For each type, we have two data sets associated with it. For account payable scenario, we have account payable data and authorized supplier address data. For account receivable data scenario, we have account receivable data and customer master data. Although in today's lecture, I'm only going to use account payable data and account receivable data, but we will import all of these four data sets because they are in totally different formats. Also, we will be using the other two data sets in the following weeks. After we import them, today we are going to save them for future usage. Now let me first show you how to import data to ACL. Let's first open ACL. In the opening interface, you can see the option of creating new projects. For each engagement, you need to create a project first and then import different data sets to that project. You can also use the menu up here and then import new projects. It asks you to name the project files. By default, it stores the project in a sample dataset file folder, which is the location where ACL is installed. I recommend you to save your project in a different location so that you can manage it easily. So in this case, I will save it in my course folder and name it as account payable. Then it will lead you to a data definition wizard, asking you to import data to this project. Now let's click Next. First, it asks you to specify where the data is located. If the data you are going to import is on your hard drive or flash drive, then you should choose this option, Disk. If the data you want to use is in ODBC compliant database, such as Oracle, you should choose the second option. If you want to define your table using external definition, you can use the third option, because all the files we are going to import are stored on hard drive, so we simply choose the first one. Now it asks you to choose the file. I stored all the files in the data folder, so I choose it. The account payable data is in textual format, as you can see here. So I choose it, double click it, and it will lead you to the next step. If you are using the IBM mainframe, you need to choose the first one, but I guess most of you are just using personal computer or laptop. Now at this step, ACL will ask you to choose the type of the data. In most cases, ACL can correctly recognize the data format. As you can see here, it can detect that the file is in textual format and consider it as delimited textual file. At the next step, it asks you to define the file property. If your first line is field name, you can choose to circle this one. You need to go over this step whenever you are trying to import something. The other options are like in RStudio I showed you 2 weeks ago. Field separator and text qualifier. Again, we can go to the raw file. Let me go there. And notice that different fields are separated by tab, and for characters, there is no code, such as here. ACL recognizes it correctly, and the preview shows that it works. When you go to next step, it tells you that on line 2 there are some errors. This could be that the line contains some special characters that ACL considers as error. Since the data is like that, we continue anyway. After clicking yes, it asks you to name the new dataset imported. So I name it as account payable. Save it. And then it will show again the problem on second line, because we can always change data types after we imported it, so we can continue anyway, and it directs us to define the field properties. Because we don't have the field name in the first row, so now we need to define them one by one. This is a little bit time consuming. If you are an internal auditor, you should know the nature of different fields, or you could contact IT department to get the meaning or description of each variable. In this case, the first field is supplier number, so I name it SUPPLO, and its character, so we keep it as text. The second field is payee number, so we name it as payee, and it's also text. For the third field, it's invoice number, so we name it invoice. We can see there are characters here, so it's also in textual format. The fourth field is invoice date. Now we need to change it from numeric to date. So just choose this option and rename it as invoice date. In addition, we need to specify the data format. Following the original date, it should be YYYYMMDD. So we type it here. The fifth state is amount. Also, you can see 2 decimal is correct. Amount. The sixth field is empty, so we simply choose to ignore this field, which means that we don't import this field into the data set we created. And for the seventh field, it's check number, so we name it as check and set it as a numeric, which is correct. The next one is payment date, and it is similar to invoice date. So first we need to change it to date format and choose date format YYYYMMDD and rename it as pay date. The last field is authorized person of this payment, so we name it as authorized, AUTH. Now, after we specify the field property, we continue. And it will give you a summary of the data. It displays the number of records, number of variables, and the type of each field. You can double check this now. After we click finish, it asks you to name the table. So by default, it's named account payable. Then you can, after we click OK, you can see the table here. You can always rename the table by clicking here. Now we keep it as it is. Now let's see how to import another format, Excel file. It's much simpler than textual file. Supplier address information is stored in Excel file. First we go to File, New Table, and we go through this again. Use disk, and we choose, now we need to go to the data folder, supplier, and ACL correctly recognize all this information. We continue, and now it asks you to save the file, the table you created using ACL. So again, I save it in my cost folder and name it as supplier address. This is the same summary of the data definition. Now click finish. Use supplier address, and again, now you can see the imported table. You can switch between different tables by simply double-clicking them. Now we want to import account receivable data. Since we want to save that into another project, so we need to create a new project for account receivable. File, new project. We create account receivable. And now we import the data. The first data set we import is account receivable data set. It is an Access database file. So we choose it. To data file, account receivable file. And then here it asks you to choose the file that you want to import. Because since both tables are the same, we just choose the first one and we go next. When you save it, is account receivable. And here you have a summary of the data. you can see that the count number, invoice number, and type are in textual format. Gross amount, GST, PST are in numeric format, and paid flags, date, customer reference number, and comment are in textual format. If you notice that the date is considered as textual data, which is not correct. We want it to be data format, so we want to change this. We can always change the types of data after we import it. So let me show you how to do it. We first click Finish, go to the data, so you can go to Edit, Table Layout, so now you can see all the information about a variable. See its title, category, length, detail, and the type of that data. So we choose this one, double click it, and we change it to data format. For the format, you can either type in or choose the one that is provided here. Here we simply choose the one that is provided here. Let me see, it should be year. Month, and date, this one. Okay, so we accept entry and click it. Now the field has been successfully changed. If you are not sure about it, you can go to Edit, Table Layout, go to Date. If you can see, its category is D, which means that it is considered as date format. Now we are going to import the last dataset, customer master data. This data is very interesting. It is in print image format. Let's open the file to see how it looks like. You can browse the data, and as you can see, it is extremely difficult to import such data if you use traditional statistical packages. Let's see how it works with ACL. First, we new a table, and now you should be very familiar with this step, and you choose customer master data, and it recognizes it as a print image file. And if this is in PDF format, you can also do it in a similar way. And here it looks different. We can follow the hint here to do this. Select a field by clicking and dragging. A field may span more than one line. Well, why we need to do that is because this file is totally different from what we have covered before. There is no definitions of lines or observations and different fields, so we need to do it by ourselves. So first, as directed by this one, we first select the field. Then now we can give it a name. We simply name it as a count number and its character. And there are some advanced options, such as the field weights. That means the length of the field and also field heights. Because all these are correct, so we don't change it. Simply click OK, and now it says select some text that is always located in or near this field. It will be used to identify all occurrences of this field. So basically, it is trying to identify different observations. This step is to help ACL to separate different observations. So now we can choose 001, and if you do so, it will identify all the observations with 001 on these digits as a unique observation. because here we are using exact match. However, if you can see the first three observations for the second to fourth digits, they are not actually 001, but they follow the same format. They are in numeric formats. So here we don't choose exact match. Instead, we choose numeric, which means that if the values of all the observations on these digits are numeric, then they will be considered as a separate observation. So we click OK, and we look at it to see if all the observations are selected, and it looks like the case. So we follow the hint to do the next thing. Select the field by clicking and dragging. So basically we are repeating the procedure, but now we don't need to identify different observations. We can simply select the field. And for this one, we select name because some names make it longer, so we can choose, we can give it more space and name it as name and its character, so we keep it this way. Now still you can see all the records are selected. And for address it's a little bit different because there are multiple lines for an address, so we need to select all the fields. Once again, you want to allow more space for this, and after this we name it as address. But now we need to change one thing in advanced option. We need to convert it to a single field. If we don't do that, it will recognize each line as a separate observation. Now we click OK to see if all the observations are selected. Yeah, this is the case. And finally, we choose credit limit. We simply choose this one and name it as credit limit and set it as numeric. Click OK. And if you browse it again, all the observations are selected. You need to double check this many times because it's very easy to make mistakes. When you try to do it yourself, you will encounter many unexpected problems that I hope you can resolve yourself. Now we go next. And then this is the standard practice, which asks you to create a file for this, and it is customer master. Save it. And now you can see all the information, and once again you can check it here, and it looks like that we didn't make any mistakes. So we go next, and this is a summary of the table, and we finish it. Okay, now it's done. Now I'm going to show you how to import data into IDEA. In IDEA, each engagement is also managed through projects. You first need to create a project for each engagement. If you notice here, project, and you select create, then you have two options. You can either create a managed project or external project. If you choose to create a managed project, then you can simply name it, and it will be stored in the default folder where IDEA is installed on your laptop. If you choose to create external project, then you need to specify a location and create a folder in it, and all the project's data are stored in that folder. However, it's important to know that you can easily delete projects that is considered as managed project, but you cannot delete external projects in IDEA. So to delete that, you have to go to your Windows and delete it, delete that folder. So here I would recommend you to use managed folder. In fact, you can change the default location where managed projects are stored. So simply go to File, Option, and choose Folders. This is where you can choose to store your managed projects. So here we just leave it as default. Now let's just create managed projects. So we go to Create Managed Project, and for the first project is named Account Payable. Account Payable. Okay. And after this, you can import your dataset, and we do the same thing. So here you have the import option. You can import using IDEA Desktop or from IDEA Server. But since we are using individual license, we can only import using IDEA Desktop. So we choose it. And unlike ACL, where files are automatically recognized, here you need to choose a format first and then choose a file. So if you can remember, the account payable data is stored in textual format. So we simply choose text and go to desktop, go to data, account payable, and go next. Here it asks you to choose how to separate the text, and here the overview is just a raw file, and if you can remember, it's separated by it is delimited, so we choose this one. And now there are several options that I think you are familiar with them now. For the separator, we have already seen the original file, and different fields are separated by tab. And the text separator, it should be, there is no text separator, so we choose nothing. And because the first row is the first observation, so we don't choose this one. And we go next. And it's the same thing that requires us to name these fields and choose the type of it. So if you can remember, the first one is the supplier number, so we rename it as supplier number and its character. So for the second field, it's the payee, so we name it as payee and leave it as character. For the third one, this is the invoice number, so we name it as invoice. As you can see, there are characters here, so it should be character. And for the fourth one, this is the invoice date, so we name it invoice date. And it should not be numeric, but date type, so we choose date type. And here it's the same, we need to assign the format of it, and it should be YYYYMMDD. And for the fourth one, it's a pay amount, so we name it as amount. And it should be numeric, and 2 decimals are correct. The sixth field is empty, so we simply choose do not import this field. And the seventh field should be the check number, so we name it as check. And it's also numeric. So the eighth field is the pay date. So again, we name it as pay date, change it as date, and format YYYYMMDD. And the last one is authorized person, so we name it as authorized, AUTH. And now we can go next. We go next. Database name, we rename it as account payable. Now, as you can see here, the data is successfully imported. Now let me import another file named supplier address. It's in Excel format, so we choose desktop. Here we choose Microsoft Excel, and we go to the folder, supplier, we choose next, and it automatically recognizes everything. Here you need to circle first row is field names, because as you can see here, these are not observations but field names. And you can also choose whether to import empty numeric cells as 0, but I have observed this before and there is no empty fields, so we don't choose that option. And now we click OK. Output, sorry, I need to change one more thing, output. So I name it as supplier address. OK. Now it's successfully imported. Now we need to import account receivable. Again, we need to first create a project for account receivable and then import data into it. Again, we name it receivable. Okay. Yes. Now we first import the first data set, account receivable. If you can remember, it's Microsoft Access format, so we choose this one first and go to the data access and you go next. And again, we just choose the first one because the second one is simply a duplicate. Here you have options to scan all the observations or scan all the observations. And we simply choose scan all and we click OK and it's imported. Now if you can remember, the type of the date field is actually not correct because it is considered as textual information, but we want it to be in date format. So this can be easily changed by go to data, modify, and you choose the date variable, convert it to date, and here you simply set the format, MMDD, okay, and we just click yes. And you can see it is recognized as date format now. Now we import the last data set, custom master data. So again, we go to import desktop, and if you remember, it's print report and PDF format. And we go to the original file. Customer, we go next, and it leads us to a PDF reader. This is a little bit different from ACL, but the basic idea is the same. So let me teach you how to do it. First, you select the first observation, you simply drag it, and you can create the standard layer. Click yes, and after this, here is different. So up here, you need to type how to separate different observations. So here, for example, for this, you left click it and you choose, if you can notice, if you drag down, the first digit is character and the last 3 digits are numbers. So here what you choose is to choose T, means text, and but in this case the first line is also recognized as an observation, because for a count number the first digit is also in text. But if we choose number, then only those meaningful observations are considered as rows. So after you do that, you need to define each field, and this is done by drag here. So first you click this one, and then you drag it to cover all of it. And on the right side, you can give it a name and define it. So for example, for the first one, it should be named count number, and its character, so it's correct. And for the second field, it's the same thing. So you drag it to cover it, because there's someone may have longer names, so you want to cover a larger space. And then again you name it as name and character. And for the third one, it's address, so we do the same thing. Click here and we drag it to cover a larger space. And now we need to choose here multiple line, and we choose yes, means that each address contains multiple lines, and we name it address. Now for the last one, it's the same. We click it and drag to cover it. And now we set it, name it as credit limit, and it should be numeric, and everything else is fine. So after this procedure, you can scroll down to see if all the observations are selected, and it looks like the case. So we click this save ledger, and then we can scan for errors, and it says there were no validation errors in this report. Sometimes you may, for example, for the name, if you choose to cover a smaller space, sometimes some characters are not included in this variable. So in this procedure, the scan for error procedure, it will tell you that, so that you can change it. But now everything is fine. So we save template. We save template as on the desktop. We save it to our course file, and we name it as customer master. So we save it. And we import to IDEA. We choose proceed with import, and here you name it as customer master. And now the data is successfully imported. Now let's focus on audit task. Here I listed all the audit tasks that I'm going to cover in this lecture. For account receivable audit, we will reconcile the data, conducting aging analysis, and analyze the balance by accounts. For accounts payable audit, I will analyze the profile of payments, test for duplicate payments, and searching for gaps in the check number sequence. In ACL, on the left side, if the table is selected, it will be in bolded format. So we choose the one that we want to work on, account receivable. The first thing you want to do after importing it, is to verify if there is any error in the data. So we simply choose data, verify field, and we add all the fields. Okay, we click OK, and it says no zero data validity errors detected. This suggests that all the values under an attribute comply with the format of that attribute. You need to note that this does not mean all your field type is correct. Remember that we converted one attribute from numeric to date. If we didn't make that change, the field will also pass the validity check. Now let's go back to the table. You can simply double click it or just click the tab. Now let me show you several calculations that you can perform. You can use total fields to calculate the total value on numeric variables. So analyze total fields, and it will list all the numeric variables. So we add all, choose OK, and then it shows the total values of all the variables. This is a very simple function. You can verify this total by using another function to calculate totals. So here we can use analyze statistics and the statistics on. Here it not only lists all the numeric variables, but also lists the date variable. So we add all, choose OK, and in the output section you can choose to output it on the screen, print it, or output it as a file, which is similar to the table that we are using. But here we just choose the default one to output it on the screen. So we choose OK. Here you can see more information. It lists the range, the number of positive records, the total and the average of positive records, and also the same for negative records. It also listed 5 largest and the smallest value. So for date, it should be the earliest 5 dates and the latest 5 dates. And for the values, they should be the lowest values and highest values. If you click in, it will bring you to the record of the original file. You can click the table to go back. This works as a filter. It's like we set one criteria for selecting variables. You can click X to delete the filter, and you can obtain the whole file. Another function that is similar to statistics is profile. So analyze statistical profile. Here again you can only choose numeric variables, and we add all. Okay. Here it listed total value, absolute value, minimum value, and maximum value. So this is like a simplified version of total. Now let me show you how to do it in IDEA. First, you need to select the projects that you want to work on. Here we are actually in the account payable project. So we want to switch to account receivable project. So we click select account receivable, click OK, and we are here. You can double click it to see the table. And on the left side, it also lists the number of records in each table. You can choose to go to that table either by double click it or switch on the tab. So now we focus on account receivable data. Different from ACL, IDEA listed several basic functions on the right hand. Here, control total is like field total in ACL. If we click it, it will list all the numeric variables. So we simply choose one, such as gross amount, click OK, yes, and it will list the total value under this variable. Another function is field statistics. It's like the statistical function in ACL. So let's choose it, field statistics. And now you can see a more comprehensive result. Variables are divided into numeric, date, and time field. It will display all the corresponding variables below. It listed more information than ACL. For example, it listed the net value, absolute value, number of records, number of zero items, positive value, negative value, number of positive records, number of negative records, number of valid values, and information like this. If you go to date, you can also see some information that is very useful. For example, the earliest date, latest date, and the most common day, most common months, items in January, in February, in March, and so on. From this, for example, you can also see the distribution of transactions on different days, and this is useful for auditors to understand the business of the client. So because we don't have any field that is time, so we don't have any variable here, but you can find the data yourself to work with it. When you want to go back to the data, just click data here, and you are back to the table. Now next, I'm going to show you aging analysis of outstanding invoices at the year end in order to identify the number and value of old debts and to make the necessary write-offs. The underlying assumption of this is that account receivables that are outstanding for a longer time are less likely to be collected. This is one of the most commonly used tests. In ACL, you can use Analyze, H. Because we have only one date field, so we can only choose this one to do aging analysis. Next, you need to specify the cutoff date. Cutoff date should be 1 day after the year end or period end date, which you wish to age the data. If you notice in statistics, most records are before April, so we choose April 1st, 2008 as a cutoff date. So we can use a calendar. Oh, this is time consuming, so I just want to type in April 1st. April. Okay, after this, we need to define the aging period. Because March has 31 days, February has 29 days in that year, January has 31 days, December has 31 days, so we set it correspondingly as 31, 16, 91, 122, and that's all. We don't need to go beyond that. Suppose we only care about debts before that day. Then you choose the numeric variable that you want to focus on. Here we focus on gross amount. Again, we choose to put it on the screen, so we click OK. And here comes the result. You can see most of the records are within latest months, as can be seen here. However, you can find records on December or even before December. We may specifically want to focus on these records because they are relatively old debts. Maybe these debts cannot be recovered and need to be written off. You can also click into that record, for example, like this, and go back. Or you can click this one and you can see 2 records, and this is their information. Now let me show you how to do it in IDEA. So you go to Analysis, Agent, and this, it looks quite different, but the basic idea are the same. So first you need to choose the agent date. So it's 2008, April 1st. And the agent field is also date, and the month field is gross amount. And here you want to choose agent period, so it's 13/1, 16, 19/1, 122, and we don't want to go beyond, so we choose 0. And now we click OK, and we obtain the same result. Here you can also go into that record by left click it, and it will ask you to whether to extract records, display records, or display field statistics. If we choose to display records, then it will show the record that has dates more than 122 days, and you can also print this. And if you want to extract records, then it will generate a new table that contains these observations in that table. Now let's go back to ACL. When you have account receivable data, you also want to know who the customers are that purchase most from you. You can do so by analyzing the account balance by customers. This can be done by clicking Analyze, Summarize. First, you need to choose the variable that you want to summarize on. Because we are interested in individual customers, so we choose account number. Subtotal field is a numeric field that you want to aggregate on. You can also choose other fields in the result. Here, we don't include other fields, and we simply do subtotal on gross amount. And then you need to choose the output format. Now we only display it on the screen. Click OK. And here you get a result. You can see the gross amount owned by different customers and how many transactions they have. However, if you choose to display it on the screen, then you cannot sort it. If you want to do that, you can choose to summarize, and we keep the same thing, account number, gross amount, but choose output as file, and then click OK. First you need to assign it a name of the output. Here we simply name it as customer. Click OK. And here is the result. If you want to sort this result, you can choose this column, right click it, quick sort descending, for example, and you can also sort the gross amount. This is very convenient. Now let's go back to the original file. Another function that has similar capability is classify. So analyze, classify. Classify can only be used on character field rather than date field. Also, you cannot choose other fields to list. So for now, we choose gross amount. We classify account number, choose gross amount, output on the screen, and click yes. It gives a little bit more information than summarize. It shows the relative frequency, which we discussed before. Also, we can store the result in the table as I showed you before. Now let's go to idea again, and let me show you how to do it in idea. So when you go to the table, you can choose Analyze, Summarization. You can choose a field or multiple fields to summarize on, and the numeric variables that you want to summarize. Here we simply choose account number and no other variable. We choose gross amount. Unlike ACL, you can choose many statistics that you want to include in the result. So you can choose, like now I choose all, like average, variance, standard deviation. If you click OK, you will find that in idea, the result is automatically saved in a table. You can also sort the result simply by double-clicking it. And if you double-click again, this is sorted descendingly. If you notice that this one purchased the largest amount from your company, so you can see its specific transactions by clicking it, and it will lead you to the detail. You can save it or print it in a PDF format for further analysis. Now we have finished all the tasks with account receivable data. Now let's go to account payable data. In ACL, we go to File, Open, File, Open Project, Account Payable. For account payable, the first thing you want to know is how these payment amounts are distributed to obtain an idea of account payable. Here we can use a function named Stratify. So Analyze, Stratify. This is similar to Summarize, except that it works for numeric variables. So first you need to choose a variable to stratify on. Sorry, this is supplier address, so we go to account payable data, Analyze, Stratify. First, you can simply choose amount number to stratify on, and the subtotal field will also choose amount. Then you can choose the number of intervals. You can either choose to have intervals with equal width, or you can define it by yourself. Here we define ourselves, so we choose 3. Now we type in the intervals, 10,000, 20,000, 13,000, 14,000, 15,000, 16,000, 17,000, 18,000, 90,000, 100,000. Now, because not many records that are larger than 100,000, so we increase it to 115,000 and increase to 200,000. Now we click OK. And we can see that most records have the smallest values, but there are possible outliers. For example, in this group, 70,000 to 80,000, there is an unusually large number of transactions. You may want to focus on this. It is more like the frequency distribution we discussed in the third lecture. However, you can define intervals more flexibly, and you can also see the total amount in each interval, which is not easy to realize in other packages. So now let's go back to idea, and first let's open the project account payable. and choose account payable information. Now we choose an analysis and the stratification. Here you can choose the field stratify on, and we simply choose amount, and the field to total on is also amount. So here you can choose, here the default increment is set to be 10,000, which is correct. So we simply click it, and continue to left click it. And after this step, we may want to increase the increment. So now we change it to 15,000 and click it twice. So this is more convenient than ACL. After we click OK, we obtain the same result. You can see those results by clicking it. For example, extract records, extraction, and then you can see these two records with amount that are larger. Another task we can do is to detect duplicate payments. So let's go back to ACL, back to the data. We can choose Analyze, look for duplicates. And for duplicates on, you need to choose the field that you want to consider as duplicate. Now, as an example, we consider transactions that have the same account number and the same amount as duplicate. But also you can choose many other fields. So we add amount and supplier number into this. Click OK. For the list field, we simply choose to display all the fields. And now we also output it on the screen. Click OK. Now you can see the result. We see there are several transactions. These are duplicate payments. And for the fourth and the fifth one, you need to pay special attention because they are both authorized by the same person, VST. So this could indicate a potential fraud. In IDEA, you can also use Analyze for duplication. So go to Analyze, duplicate key, and detection. So you can choose to output duplicate records or output records without duplicate. But for now, since we are studying duplicate payments, so we choose to output duplicate records. Now you choose key. This is how you consider one transaction as duplicate. So we choose supplier number and amount. Okay. And for the fields, it is the listed fields that you want to see in the output. So we choose all, click OK. And you can also set a criteria. For example, you may only want to find duplicates that have amount larger than 10,000. For now, we don't use it for simplicity. So we click OK. Oh, there is no duplicate because I'm applying the duplicate key detection on the extraction. So that's why I don't see any result. But if you go to account payable and go back to the data, duplicate key detection, and we do the same thing, supplier number, amount, okay, field list all, okay. Now you can see the same result. The last audit task is look for gap. In ACL, in the account payable data, if you notice, we have this variable named check. In theory, check number is issued in sequence. There should not be any gap in check number. However, in practice, it is common that it is not always in sequence. So we can analyze those missing check numbers by using gap examination. So simply go to Analysis, look for gap, and choose the variable that we want to do gap on, which is check in this case. Okay. And you can also choose the pre-sorted. So we click OK. And it lists two ranges. You see there is one missing value in this range and four missing values in this range. In audit, you should report this finding to see why there are gaps. Now let's do it in IDEA. I go back to the account payable data and the data itself. Now you can use gap detection, and you simply apply it on check number. And here you can choose the gap increment. Sometimes maybe your check number is issued in even numbers, but here it's simply we can choose 1 and click OK. And you see the same result. There are 1 missing item here and 4 missing items in this range. That's all for this lecture, and let's do a brief review. First, you have learned how to import data of different formats into ACL and IDEA. You also learned how to modify data type and applying aging analysis on date field. We also covered how to summarize the data and stratify numeric variables. Lastly, we talk about how to find duplicate payments. I will upload all the data to eCollege system so that you can practice on, but you are very welcome to use any data that we can find online to do your own practice. See you next week.